Welcome to Level 3 of Microsoft Excel. In this course, we're going to be looking at manipulating some data that I pulled from Aware. The data we'll be looking at is actually a student learning standard breakdown from the 2019 STAR. So this is for grade 6 reading. The data you'll be seeing and working with today is fictitious. It's made up, so it's not real student data or real student names, but this is the exact way the report would pull and what it would look like. In Aware, you can do that with any report. If you find which one you want, you find your category, whether you want the teacher or the student one, all you have to do is click export and export to Excel, and that would get an Excel sheet for you. Now, Aware does have some breakdown features you can use inside of it, but when you download as an Excel file, there's just a lot more you can do with it, and it can be a lot more usable for you, especially if you're going to use it repeatedly. So down here is the data we're going to be working with today. So it's this Excel Level 3 assignment. So what I'm going to have us do, if I were to click on this, it would bring us right to the web version. But what I want us to do is actually open up the desktop version. So the web version of Excel is very functional. It can do a lot of what you need to do. But the desktop version just has a little extra that we need for the task that we have at hand today. So what you're going to do is click the three dots, and you're going to click Open in Excel. So this will force it to open in your desktop app. So now we'll have the full functionality of Excel and not just the abbreviated version that's in the online. So when you download an Aware file, this is kind of the format you'll get. You'll have this wonky header, that's just how it downloads, and then you'll have your data. So this data is again from the STAR test. So I see all of my results by standard, because I was going by standard breakdown, and I can see my scores. So this data right here is good to look at, it's good to use, but right now there's not a whole lot we can do with it to manipulate it. So for example, if I really want to focus on standard 6.2, I can't take this and sort that because of the way the headers and everything are. This is not actually lined up in a good usable format. So what we're going to do for a second here is change the way this header is laid out so that I can then start manipulating the data. So you'll need to follow along step by step as I go through and make sure you stay with me on this one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click right here on that one. So it selected that whole row. Now what we're actually going to do with that is right click and delete. So I just deleted row 1. Now all that did was get rid of some wasted information that I don't need. Okay. Now when I look at the rest of this, I still see I have 2 rows here that are taking up space. When I want to deal with this as a table, I can't have 2 rows as my header right here. So what I need to do is combine these and to make it 1 row. Now if I look at this student name, it's taking up 2 rows. If I want to change that, all I gotta do is up here hit that merge and center. That'll split it back into 2 rows. There we go, now I have it into 2 rows. So now I can take this, all these are the same, so I'm going to highlight from local IDs, column B all the way to column F, ethnicity. I'm going to click that merge and center. So it's going to take them back to 1 row. Now what I can actually do is take it and drag these back down, because what I'm going to end up doing is getting rid of that very top row. So this takes a little bit of time to get in the correct format for us to work with, but it'll be worth it in the end. Now if I look over here, I see that column AB through AG are all the same. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to select them all. I'm going to click this merge and center. Now I'm going to take these and adjust them down. So as a teacher, you're going to see that this may take some time for me to set up the right way. But again, once it's set up, you do have the ability to do a lot more than you can inside Aware. So now all that's in row 1 up there is that learning standard. So I can go ahead and actually right click and delete that row. So now I'm left with 1 row here. I have all of my headers for my columns. I have my standards written right there, and I have everything good to go. All right. So right now, this data, if I were to click and try to sort by column G, it still wouldn't work. Now the reason that is because this is not set up as a table. That can be fixed real quick here though. So what you're gonna do is click in box A1, and you're gonna drag all the way to the end of your sheet. So down to box AG28 and let go. So now that that's all selected, what you want to do is right here at the top, it says format as table. We can pick the type of table we want. Let's go ahead and go with that one. Now it's going to ask us, is that the range of our data, what we selected? My table has headers, yes. Click OK. So now you can see the change that happened there, where that these now have these little drop-down menus. What that does for our data is it makes it able to sort this data without changing anything else. So for example, if I wanted to sort by standard 6.2, I could sort smallest to largest, and I can get all my 0% all the way to my 100%. So that allows us to manipulate the data without having to worry about messing up any of our rows. So now our table is formatted the correct way. Now we can begin to look at how does that help us as teachers as we're trying to go back and fill in gaps. Like I said, this was the 2019 star. So this may be something as a teacher you'd want to go look at. And if you're doing small group instruction or if you have some rotations, this is where we need to start filling in gaps as teachers. So you would look and you'd see 6.2. If I had these students in my class, that may be a great opportunity to do a small group pullout to go over that standard and reassess. As teachers, we always have to be aware of the gaps that exist so we can go back and fill them. Otherwise, going forward is going to be that much more difficult. So now that our data is fully able to be manipulated, what we're going to do here is apply a couple other things. So when I look at this, it's still kind of, it's kind of hard to track what's where. So we're going to do something here called conditional formatting. Conditional formatting allows us to set rules that will highlight certain values. So if I want to know where all the 0% are, I can quickly see that by just seeing a different color. So we're going to make sure we're on the Home tab on our ribbon. Now what we need to do is you need to put your cursor in G2, right at that 0%. You're going to click and drag all the way down to AA28 so that that's all selected. Now what you're going to do is come up here, you click on conditional formatting. We're going to go to highlight cells rule, and the rule we're going to do is if it's less than, and we're going to say if it's less than 50%, it's going to highlight with red. Just click OK. So now when I look at my data, it's easier to see where those low spots are. We can also do that for some other areas. So go ahead and click in G2 again and drag down. We're going to go back up to conditional formatting, highlight rules, and now we're going to go with the greater than. So if it's greater than 50%, we want to click this drop down and change that to green. Click OK. So now I can see where it's below 50 and where it's above 50. Now we can even get a little bit more specific. Let's go ahead and click and drag again. We're going to go conditional formatting, highlight cells rule, and we're going to go equal to. And we're going to say if it's equal to 50%, we're going to change it to yellow. Click OK. So now when we look at our data, we have some nice color coding that can help us start to see some patterns. When we look at some of these, you can start to see where the big gaps are. So I can definitely see in this column there's a huge gap we're going to have to go back and fill, but those start to become more apparent. Our next part is to kind of help us focus in on some of those problem standards what we're going to do is actually put in an average. So I can start to see what is the average of each of these standards on that star. So what you'll do is down here in G29, you're going to put your cursor there and just click. Then I want you to go up to Formulas, and under Auto Sum there's a little drop down. We're going to click Average. Now when I click that average, it's a formula that just ran. If I click on that, I can see what it's going to be running for me, but it just got me the average percent of everything in that column. So now if I take that cursor, that little box down in the right hand corner, if I click and drag that all the way across, I can see the averages of each standard as we go through. So I can look here and I can see that standard 6.3a, that one had a 44% average. So that may be something. Let's go ahead and sort by that one. We're going to click that drop down. We're going to sort largest to smallest. That may be something right there. That is going to be a half and half lesson. So I'm going to set up 2 stations in my classroom, and we're going to really cover 6.3a with one. And then I can look over here and see, well, maybe figure 19e, maybe that's something we need to cover as well. So that can be covered with the rest of them. So that's a way to get a group that's going to be intentional, that you can actually look and find specific things that they will need. We really want to focus on intentionality, and this is a great way to find data that we know will help us be intentional in what we teach. So as we're looking at this, like I said, this is a great way to start looking at our data. I do want to show you a couple other things here. Now you can see, like, as I scroll and everything, I lose the student names. So if I scroll over a little bit, I don't know who had these scores. Same thing, if I scroll down, I lose what standard it's on. So I'm going to show you a quick trick here. What I want you to do is put your cursor, click right in B2, and just leave it so it's green. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go to View, and you're going to go to Freeze Panes. Now what we want to do is right here, click on this first one that says Freeze Panes. Now watch what happens when I scroll over. Those names stay right there. If I scroll down, my header stays right where it needs to be, so I don't lose track of things as easily. So that's a way, and the way you do that is just by going at the apex of where those two meet. If you go one right below, you can find, I want this column and this column frozen, it would stay there. If I were to put my cursor here, it would freeze these two and these two, so those would stay there and scroll over. Alright, so now our data, we can look at it, we can see what it is. Sometimes we get to a point where this data, you know, it's nice to know, but we may not need it every day. So what I'm going to do is actually, I just clicked and highlighted all those rows. I'm going to right click, and instead of deleting them, I'm just going to hide them. So now I can see that's right there. Everything is close to each other. Let's say I don't need these two either, AB or AC. I can right click and hide. Now my data looks a lot cleaner. Now if you ever want to get those back, all you got to do is put your cursor where they're split apart. You could right click, unhide, and it would come back. Or you can just click and drag and open it up. Alright, so we have our data here. Everything looks like we can start forming groups. If I am covering a standard that aligns with 6.7 today, I can sort that. I can find, this is a group, that's going to be one group I'm working with that needs to have a little extra instruction because of how they did. These students should be fine to either work independently or with a little less intense instruction. So that is, I know, quite a bit. The skills that we just went over about freezing, about turning into a table, averaging those formulas, all of that stuff, the conditional formatting, that can be applied to any sheet that you use. But this was just a good example using that star data to make that more relevant information for our instruction. The last thing I want to show you real quick here is when we're looking at our data, sometimes we may want to take things, so let's say we are doing standard 6.2 today. And I want to take this, but I want to take these students and I want to make sure I get them in a group. I can go ahead and even highlight their averages. What we can do is actually copy that, and if I click this little plus, that's going to start a new page. So now I can paste that. I'll go to my sheet 2, I can paste that, and that information would be there. So if this, I wanted to be my group 1, I could separate them out and I have that list ready to go for me right here. You could do that with your other groups. So if this was your group 1, this was your group 2, you could find other standards you wanted to work on and sort them into groups further from there. All right, we also have the ability to, if you just want to copy that, you could copy the whole page and insert it. So this is a clean copy of whatever you're working on. All right, so now our table should look just like this. This is exactly what we should have on our table. So I should see the colors, I should see the percents at the bottom, I should see it formatted as a table. Once all those things are done and it looks just like this, we want to make sure we wait until it says saved, because right now it's saving. Now that it says saved, we can go ahead and close it. Now that's all we have to do. So when I open this back up, it's going to look exactly how we edited everything. Everything is just there perfectly. So I can close that. Everything is done. Click turn in, and level 3 is complete. Like I said, that is a great just method for going and reviewing data. We always want to make sure we're going back and making use of that data. That's the most important part about assessments, is making sure you're using the data to reteach and fill gaps. If there are any questions on that, please let me know. Thank you and good luck with the rest of the school year.